Kasumi Yoshizawa has a weird reputation in the Persona community. There's a clear divide between people who like Yoshizawa and who hate Yoshizawa. I do think that when it comes to the Persona community, we all have some pretty brain-dead takes because we just like to stir things up for the sake of it. I'm not immune to that, I know that. And today, we're going to dive headfirst into one of the most controversial topics to see just how bad it is. We're talking about Sumire Yoshizawa or Kasumi Yoshizawa. She was the new face of Persona 5 Royale, a shy, talented gymnast with a captivating charm. She has most certainly charmed me because she is my favorite in Persona 5 Royale. I like characters like her, you know? But when the game's credits rolled, a vocal part of the fanbase wasn't just underwhelmed, they were hostile. You've heard the criticisms, she's waifu bait, she's forced into the story, she's a Mary Sue. Sure, these are opinions, but these are opinions that I do not agree with. What if I told you that the reason people criticize Sumire is the very same reason she's a masterfully written character? Her story isn't just an add-on, it's a heartbreaking journey of grief and self-acceptance that completely recontextualizes the game's core themes. It's a tragedy that unfolds right in front of you, a tale of a girl who lost herself and had to fight to find her way back. I'm telling you, it's a story that goes way deeper than a simple romance option, and her hate is completely undeserved. I'm going to the waifu wars to defend my queen Sumire Yoshizawa. The easiest and most tired criticism thrown at Kasumi or Sumire is that she's nothing more than waifu bait. According to this take, she's just a pretty new face added so players have another cute romance option in Persona 5 Royale. Of course, she's my favorite romance option in P5R, and on the surface, it's easy to see why people jump to that conclusion. She's attractive, she gets new story beats, she's clingy to Joker, and yes, she can be romanced. But the truth is, reducing her to waifu bait is shallow and ignores the actual story the game is telling. Once you actually follow her arc, the so-called fan service moments reveal themselves as the complete opposite. They're painful, messy, and absolutely essential to Persona 5 Royale's themes. Let's start with her introduction. Kasumi doesn't just fall out of the sky in the third semester, she's around from the very beginning of Royale as a transfer student and a rising gymnast. She appears in classes, in school events, and even joins Joker in the Metaverse incident early on. She awakens to a persona long before she joins the Thieves, proving she has her own strength and connection to the supernatural side of the story. Later, during the Shiro arc, she even offers to officially join the Phantom Thieves, but Joker and Morgana refuse, not because she doesn't belong, but because they're afraid it will put her in danger. That's important. The writers were showing us that she was always in the orbit of the Thieves, but they deliberately held her back so the truth of her identity would hit harder later on. If she had been in the group from the start, her twist would have lost all of its impact. And that twist is the key to why the waifu bait take completely falls apart. The girl we know as Kasumi is actually Sumire, who has been living a lie ever since her sister died. She's been crushed by guilt and grief so much so that Dr. Maruki literally altered her cognition to make her believe she was her sister. That's why she seems bright, cheerful, and perfect early on. It's the mask of a broken girl hiding from the truth. When Joker shows her kindness, she clings onto him, not because of some shallow attraction, but because she's desperate for stability and safety. He's the one person who treats her like she matters, and she latches onto that like a lifeline. That's not a cheesy romance trope, that's trauma. Her affection for Joker is born out of survival, not fan service. Her Confidant events make this even clearer. One moment she's friendly and open, the next she's stiff and pulling back. She'll laugh and smile with Joker, then suddenly shut down when he gets too close to the real her. That push and pull is classic trauma behavior. It's a reflection of someone who wants to connect but is terrified of being exposed. If this was just waifu bait, her Confidant would be nothing but cute dates and fanservice dialogue. Instead, it's awkward, heartbreaking, and raw. It's about a girl drowning in guilt and trying little by little to reach the surface. Even the romance option isn't what people think it is. Sumire's early crush on Joker isn't about her wanting a boyfriend, it's about needing someone to anchor her in reality. Joker is the first person who treats her kindly without judgment, and that support is what she latches onto. Over time, as she begins to face who she really is, her feelings shift. That's when romance can become genuine, but by then it's not about Joker being rewarded with a new waifu, it's about Sumire finally seeing herself clearly enough to love and be loved. The romance is a byproduct byproduct of healing, not the purpose of her character. And let's not forget, many of the fan service moments that make people roll their eyes wasn't even Sumire herself. It's Sumire, but her cognition was already altered by Dr. Maruki to act like Kasumi. Of course she looks flawless there. Her pain has been rewritten. That's not Atlas handing players a fantasy girlfriend, that's the game showing how dangerous it is to live in denial. Her quote-unquote perfect life is literally a lie, and the entire third semester is about her rejecting that fantasy no matter how comforting it feels. When she finally awakens as a true Phantom Thief and takes on the name Violet, it's not because she's Joker's waifu of choice, it's because she's finally accepted herself. She no longer needs to hide behind her sister's name, she no longer needs Maruki's comforting illusion. That's why her arc hits so hard. It's not about giving players another romance option, it's about watching someone claw their way back to their real self after years of denial. So let's call this out for what it is. The waifu bait argument is lazy. It comes from looking at her surface traits. She's pretty, she's friendly, she's dateable, and ignoring the emotional core of her story. Sumire isn't bait for lonely players. She's one of the most thematically rich characters in Royale. Her journey is messy, tragic, and inspiring. She embodies the game's message that facing your real self, no matter how painful, is better than hiding in a lie. To dismiss that as waifu bait is to miss the entire point of Persona 5 Royale. The next complaint, which is the biggest complaint about Sumire, is that she feels forced into the story, that Persona 5 Royale just added her at the last minute to sell the new version of the game. At first glance, this sounds believable. She wasn't in the original Persona 5, she doesn't join the Phantom Thieves until very late, and for many players that makes her seem like an extra part that doesn't fully belong. But if you slow down and really look at how her story is written, her late arrival is not a mistake at all. It's a deliberate choice, and it's one that makes her role stronger, more emotional, and much more meaningful than if she had been added earlier. Let's start with how she shows up in the game. Kasumi, the gymnast and transfer student, appears in the story from very early on. She is not just dropped in suddenly when the third semester begins. She helps Joker here and there, shows up in school events, and has enough small interactions to keep her present in the player's mind. These scenes may seem minor at first, but they are building a base for something bigger. We even see her awaken to her persona during a metaverse moment, proving that she has strength of her own and that she is tied to the supernatural side of the story. Then, you know the drill. During the Nijima Mokoto arc, she appears to help Joker escape, which is in the introduction to the game. Then she offers to join the Phantom Thieves during the Shido arc, but was rejected because it's too dangerous. That rejection isn't poor writing per se, it's a careful setup. It shows us that the team cares about her, and it also builds tension for the future. The game is planting clues all along so that when the third semester arrives, her larger role feels like the payoff to something we've been watching develop. By that time, we've seen her growth, her bond with Joker, and the heavy weight she carries inside. So when she finally steps forward as a main player, it feels earned, not random. Now, think about the themes of the story. Persona 5 is about masks, about hiding from pain, and about facing the truth no matter how hard it is. Each Phantom Thief has their own mask that covers up some kind of struggle. Sumire takes this idea further than anyone else. She doesn't just act cheerful to hide sadness, she actually lives under her dead sister's name because she cannot deal with her grief. This is one of the most extreme and heartbreaking examples of denial in the entire series. Her story doesn't clash with Persona 5's message, it's a perfect fit. When Persona 5 Royale expands the story with Dr. Maruki's perfect world, Sumire's struggle makes even more sense. She shows us in the most direct way possible why people would choose to live in a comforting lie. At the same time, her decision to face reality shows us why that choice, painful as it is the one that leads to real growth. The pacing of her story is also handled with care. Her Confidant events give us small details of her time, never rushing to reveal the full truth. This keeps her arc mysterious while also letting us see her character slowly open up. If she had been in the Phantom Thieves from the very beginning, the big twist that she is really Sumire, not Kasumi, would not have hit as hard. By holding back, the game makes that reveal much more emotional and surprising. When she finally awakens as a true Phantom Thief during the Maruki arc, it feels like the final step in a journey we've been quietly following for hours of gameplay. Her role is also what gives the third semester its emotional weight. Without her, Maruki Maruki's ideal world would feel like a concept. What if we lived in a dream instead of facing reality? With her, that idea becomes personal. Sumire has every reason to want that world to exist, becoming her sister and her grief erased. Watching her confront this fantasy and give it up makes the story hit much harder. It's no longer just Joker fighting against Maruki's beliefs and theory, it's Joker fighting beside someone who could easily give in but chooses not to. That makes the conflict emotional as well as philosophical. We can also look at how Sumire's story changes the way we see Joker. Joker's fight isn't just about leading the Phantom Thieves against corrupt adults anymore. Through Sumire, it becomes about helping someone face their deepest pain. That makes his role feel more human and more personal. It shows Joker not just as a leader but as a friend who stands by someone at their lowest point. In many ways, Sumire's growth mirrors the player's journey, making her story feel even more connected to the overall game. Another important point is how her late entry lines up with the structure of Royale itself. Persona 5 Royale isn't just the base game with a few new dungeons, it adds the third semester as a whole new act. That act is supposed to feel like a new perspective, a chance to see the story in a different light. Sumire's reveal and her role as a new Phantom Thief make the third semester feel like a natural extension of that idea. She embodies what the extra content is all about, facing new truths even if they hurt and refusing to stay in a lie. So when people say she feels forced, I understand why they think that way. On the surface, she does come in late and she does stand apart from the original group. But once you really pay attention to how her story is built, it becomes clear she's not an afterthought. She's the part that makes the third semester feel alive and emotional. Her reveal, her pain, and her decision to accept herself all tie directly into Persona 5's core themes. Without her, Royale's ending would not have the same impact. With her, the story feels bigger, deeper, and more complete. She is not extra, she is essential. Now, one of the labels that gets thrown at Kasumi, or really Sumire, is that she's a Mary Sue. People use that word when they think a character is too perfect, too special, or written to make players like them without any effort. For Sumire, critics often point to three things. She's talented, she gets extra story scenes, and she can be romanced. On the surface, those things sound like special treatment. But if you slow down and look closely at who she is and how the story builds around her, the Mary Sue label just doesn't hold up. In fact, the exact things people complain about are the same things that make her a strong and layered character. Yes, Sumire is an elite gymnast, but that's not some random skill the writers tossed in to make her impressive. It's part of her entire life. She trained since she was young, pushed herself to exhaustion, and always felt the weight of living in her sister's shadow. Gymnastics tied her identity to her sister Kasumi, and when Kasumi died, that whole foundation cracked. Her skill is linked directly to her trauma, not her perfection. Being good at gymnastics isn't about being her untouchable. It's about showing the crushing expectations she lived under and why losing her sister hurt her more than anyone realized. Instead of being a gift that makes her flawless, it's a reminder of how broken she feels inside. The extra focus she gets in Royale also isn't there to make her shine brighter than the rest of the Phantom Thieves. Those scenes aren't happy rewards, they're painful reminders of the mask she's wearing. We see her cheerful act slip again and again. We watch her avoid who she really is, and we see her cling to Joker because she doesn't know how else to stay afloat. Every special cutscene is really another look at how deep her grief goes. Without these moments, the third semester wouldn't carry the same emotional weight. They aren't about her being flawless. They are about peeling back the layers until the truth comes out, no matter how ugly it is. And the romance angle, that one gets overblown. Some players argue that since she's attractive and dateable, she must be a Mary Sue made to please fans. But her feelings for Joker aren't the typical shiny anime crush. They start from her trauma. Joker is kind to her at a time when she's desperate for someone to see her as she is, and she latches onto that. It's not an ideal love story at first, it's a coping mechanism, a way for her to feel safe. Over time, as she starts to face herself, that bond can grow into something healthier and more genuine. That's not lazy writing, that's a realistic look at how broken people can cling to kindness before learning to stand on their own. Then there's the idea that she's too good in some scenes. What people forget is that many of those moments aren't real. They're part of Dr. Maruki's false reality. He rewrote her memory so she could live guilt-free, so of course she seems perfect. But that isn't the game praising her, that's the game warning us about the danger of easy answers and comforting lies. When the truth finally comes out, the mask falls apart, and we see Sumire in her rawest form, a girl who is terrified of her own name, who doesn't want to accept who she is. Those quote-unquote perfect scenes are illusions, not proof of her being a Mary Sue. Her growth also isn't clean or instant. She doesn't accept herself with a smile the moment she learns the truth. She lashes out, she breaks down, and even her persona goes berserk because she can't handle the weight of reality. The path from denial to acceptance is messy, and her eventual choice to fight as Violet and truly join the Phantom Thieves is something she earns through pain, not privilege. It's not a prize she's handed, it's the end of a long, jagged road of grief and guilt. Far from being a Mary Sue, Sumire comes across as one of the most human and most tragic figures in the game. Even the gameplay ties into this. Sure, she gets strong skills and flashy moves when she joins the party, but that's how Persona always shows growth. A new persona or a team move isn't about being overpowered, it's a symbol of the character's inner change. Sumire's combat strength reflects her emotional awakening, not some cheat code treatment from the writers. The game mirrors her healing in both story and mechanics, which makes her development feel earned. And when you step back, the Mary Sue complaints mostly come from surface level impressions. People saw a cute new character who wasn't in the original game, noticed she had a romance option, and assumed she was fan service. But following her story to the end shows something totally different. She isn't perfect at all. She's broken, guilty, full of self-hate, and trying to crawl her way back to the light. That's the heart of her character. The message of her arc isn't look at how special she is, it's healing is hard, ugly, and slow, but worth it. Calling her Mary Sue misses all of that. If anything, Sumire's journey proves the opposite. She's not perfect, she's painfully real, and that's why her story in Persona 5 Royale is so powerful. The hate that Kasumi or Sumire gets is built on shallow readings and half-truths. People call her waifu bait, forced, or a Mary Sue, but those labels fall apart when you actually follow her story. She isn't just another romance option tacked onto Royale. She isn't a shiny add-on meant to sell copies, and she definitely isn't a flawless fantasy character. She's a broken girl who lost herself in the shadow of her sister, who had her very identity rewritten, and who had to claw her way back piece by piece. That is what makes her story powerful. Through Sumire, Royale takes the themes of Persona 5, identity, masks, rebellion, and truth. It pushes them to their emotional limit. She shows us what it means to live in denial, what it costs to hide behind a lie, and how hard it is to accept a painful reality. And in the third semester, she becomes the heart of the entire conflict, the living proof that even the most comforting dream is worth giving up if it means you can face the world as your true self. So the next time someone says Sumire Yoshizawa is waifu bait or forced or a Mary Sue, remember what her story really is. It's not about perfection, it's about imperfection. It's not about fan service, it's about grief. And it's not about being forced into the story, it's about completing it. That's why she deserves respect, not hate. Because without Sumire, Persona 5 Royale wouldn't just be missing a character, it would be missing its soul. That is all. I'll see ya.
From